Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good evening so far. We've got so update 4.5 was released yesterday, and I started the hangout event featuring Lynette uh, yesterday. I think we'll probably start the Chiori story quest right now, and then maybe switch to the hangout event later. Me.
Add Astra.
Alright. Alright, so still no new event yet. So yeah, go ahead and unlock the quest here. Yep.
It seems like there's another event going on at the Court of Fontaine. Look at that. Roadside signs as far as the eye can see. Let's see what they're for. Fontaine Fashion Week? Ooh, why don't we go check out some of the shops? Maybe we can pick up some cool new clothes.
Is this really okay?
I told you I could do it using the leftover funds from the original deposit. Don't tell me you're afraid that I cheaped out on the dress.
No, not at all. I have only the fullest faith in your work, Miss Chiori. I'm just in shock, that's all. It's always been my dream to wear a Chioria boutique dress for my wedding. I really thought the chance had passed me by.
Wait, isn't that Chiori? She's actually at her shop today?
Perhaps it's because of Fontaine Fashion Week?
Oh, you've got a point there. Well, once she's done with her customer, we can go and ask her.
I'm a woman of my word. If I say I can do something, then it'll be done. The first rule of business is to always keep your promises. Now, remember to not fold the gown, or store it under direct sunlight. I'd recommend only taking it out on the day of the wedding. But from the look on your face, I can tell that may be a little difficult for you.
Oh, I'll try my best. Once he sees me in this, his jaw is gonna drop straight to the floor.
Chiori, you're actually at your shop today!
Is that really so shocking? It is mine, after all. Anything you're looking for today? A custom design, or perhaps some ready-to-wear outfits for kids?
Hey, Paimon's not a kid!
We actually wanted to ask about Fontaine Fashion Week.
Oh, that. Well, if news of the event has reached your ears, I suppose the Fontaine Apparel Association's advertising efforts have paid off.
Are there any fun and popular activities that we can take part in?
Ugh, Fashion Week isn't what I'd call fun. But it certainly always attracts a crowd. It's a fashion extravaganza that only takes place once a year, after all.
Will you be showing off some of your designs, too?
Of course. All designers at the Court of Fontaine use the week to advertise their brand. If you're lucky, you could even land a large amount of orders as soon as the main show ends. Come to think of it, it was also at a previous fashion week that our label first took off.
Aren't you pretty much an established name now? People will still buy your clothes even if you don't participate this year, right?
Yeah, that's not quite how it works. While many people buy clothes for fit and style, The fashion industry also strongly values a label's artistic vision and creative direction. Why would anyone patronize a label that hasn't even bothered to put out any new designs for the year? In the end, fashion is just a representation of the spirit of the times. People support your brand because they support the vision it represents.
Huh. Okay, so maybe fashion's more complicated than Paimon thought. All that complicated stuff aside, you're saying we'll be able to see new Chiori designs at the show?
Absolutely. The designs have already been finalized. I'm just waiting for the fabrics to arrive.
Ooh, are you using materials you can't get in Fontaine?
Well, I still have a certain partiality to Inazuma-made fabrics. The textures are pleasant to the touch, and their familiarity gives me a sense of security.
Oh, Paimon gets it! It's that feeling of home.
Ugh, something like that. Yes.
We're a long way from Inazuma, though. Aren't you concerned that your shipment might get lost or stolen along the way?
No need to worry. I've already taken steps to ensure that it'll arrive safely. I've entrusted the job to Komani Express's most reliable courier.
Excuse me. Coming through. Coming through. Chiori, your shipment's here. I know it's quite late, so I'm really sorry.
Deep breaths, Kirara, then start again.
Oh, so Kirara's the courier you were talking about.
Oh, hey, Traveler and Paimon. Fancy seeing you here in Fontaine. It's been a while.
It has indeed.
Wait a second. This is the second time that you've seen me flub a delivery job now, isn't it? Oh, you somehow always happen to catch me off my game, huh?
So, what was the holdup? Sailing delays, bad weather?
Huh? No, nothing like that. I just ran into a bit of trouble, that's all.
Bandits, then? Or treasure hoarders? A few run-ins on the road aren't usually enough to give you any trouble.
Well, I didn't run into anyone exactly. I just got a little lost.
Keeping you honest as always, I see.
All right. I was stopped by a group of bandits as soon as I entered Fontaine. They were a little different from the ones I usually run into. I could hear them mumbling about Komania Express. It was obvious they were looking for someone with two tails.
So it was a targeted hit?
I got the sense that they were actually targeting Chiori's goods.
My fabric shipment?
Yeah, they said that I could go as long as I left the goods with them. Otherwise, they'd stuff me into my delivery box and toss me into the sea to drown.
Oh, are you okay, Kirara?
Oh, I'm good. I'm still a yokai after all. I turned them over to the guards. It just took me a while to round them all up.
Well, it's not completely out of the ordinary for one of your deliveries to get intercepted. But it still doesn't make sense how you knew it was my goods they were after. You've got other deliveries to make in Fontaine, don't you? Is there something else that you're keeping from me?
Huh? Well...
Perhaps I need to reconsider how many stars to give you in my review.
You always know how to get me, Chiori. Alright, I'll talk. So, I kinda wanted to know why anyone would order a hit on me, so I spent a bit of time investigating. One of the bandits had a loose tongue, which saved me some time. He said that a certain person had commissioned them to intercept Chioria Boutique's delivery.
And who might this person be?
Chiori, why don't we just let this one go? I mean, I didn't really get injured, and you've still got Fashion Week to worry about.
I appreciate your kindness, Kirara, but if I don't teach this person a lesson, I doubt they'll stop here. Anyone that dares to mess with one of my friends deserves a stern talking to and then some.
Alright. The guy said that the commissioner was someone by the name of Uter.
Uter. No, that name rings a bell. Wouldn't you say, Kirara?
Well, that's exactly why I didn't want to bring it up to you.
So you both know this Uter guy?
Through Chiori's complaints about him, sure. He's a fellow fashion designer who's made it his goal in life to make hers as miserable as possible.
Oh, so he's like a business rival.
A rival is what you call someone who fights you fair and square. Uter, however, just has it out for me as a designer. He's publicly disparaged my design choices, my use of materials. He's practically tried every trick in the book to ruin my good name. I've already warned him before to compete with me fair and square, but I guess he prefers playing dirty. Well, I'm more than happy to oblige.
Wait, Chiori, where are you going?
To teach someone a lesson. You must be tired after your long journey. Why don't you rest in my shop for a little while before heading back?
Chiori! Wait!
And she's gone.
Oh no. What should we do?
You seem concerned. Should we be worried about Chiori?
Well, she's always been the type of person to face things head on. But with her fiery temper, I'm just worried whatever she's about to do will feel negative publicity about her right before the start of Fashion Week. Traveler, Paimon, could you go after her and check out the situation for me? As a formal employee of Komonia Express, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to get involved.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll take good care of Chiori.
To be honest, I'm more worried about that Uter guy's safety.
Well...
Any chance you're on the clock, officer?
Nothing good ever comes out of you addressing me like that. Oh? And I see the Traveler and Paimon are here too.
Chevras, we meet again.
Has everything been going well?
Well, things have been fine on my end. We were able to bring in a large number of recruits thanks to that film we made. I suppose the trade-off is that I'm now constantly getting stopped for autographs while out on patrol. Not ideal, if you ask me.
Well, you were one of the leading roles after all.
So, did something happen?
Indeed it did. I'll need you to come with me.
I only ever hear that phrase from you. Usually I'm the one asking people to do that.
Well, are you coming?
Not before I know what you're planning.
Have I ever made a bad call?
The better question is, have you ever made one that didn't violate proper procedure?
Okay. A man hired a group of bandits to mug my friend. I'm about to go teach him a lesson.
Are you sure this is something you should be telling the captain of the special patrol? It's getting hard to tell whether you're here to report a case or turn yourself in for one.
Neither. I'm requesting personal supervision from said captain, so I don't do anything too out of line.
Are you planning to?
Not if I can help it.
All right. Where is this person?
Follow me.
Just promise you'll start trying to keep yourself out of trouble.
Well, when trouble stops coming my way, I'll be sure to get on that. This should be the place. You all wait here. I'll go have a chat with him.
You know, Chevraz, Paimon gets the sense that you two are actually pretty close.
It's just as Chiori said. We got to know each other pretty well in our lines of work. You could call it a you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours sort of situation.
Does Chiori often need your help?
I'd say it's mutual. The Special Patrol needs her help quite often as well. We've got tough problems of our own. Getting people to talk, for example. The uniform, the musket, they're intimidating. Most people clam up the minute they see us. Lips sealed so tight, getting them to talk almost feels like trying to break into the fortress of Meripede. But put them in a clothing boutique, and they suddenly start gushing faster than the waters at the Fountain of Lucine.
Oh, is it because they're trying to show off or something?
Yep. People are vain creatures. They can't help but want to talk up new developments in their lives or show off how much they know about other people. And nothing brings out that sort of vanity quite like fashion. As a result, Chiori often picks up on all kinds of information in her shop. Most of her customers are members of the upper class, which means they're pretty much up to the gills in wealth and intel.
You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Huh, Paimon gets it now?
Exactly. I'm also here to ensure Chiori's safety. Those who make trouble for her also tend to be rich and powerful. And in some very rare cases, I'm forced to protect other people from Chiori herself. So, who got on her case this time? It's been a while since I last saw her that angry.
Oh, so this is what happened.
Huh? Uter, you say?
You've heard of him?
Yep. He's made trouble for Chiori several times already. He's fond of pretty much every dirty trick in the book. I heard that even the Maison Gardiennage issued him a warning due to his behavior. So he's back at it, huh? His funeral, I guess.
Whoa, what's this about a funeral all of a sudden?
I just meant that Uter's done for. Now bring it in, you two. Get right up close.
Sure, but why?
The hell?
Because this is probably going to turn into one of those very rare cases I just talked about.
What are you doing? Stay away from me!
Has anyone ever taught you the definition of stupidity?
Huh?
Stupidity is doing the same meaningless thing over and over again. It appears you've forgotten what I told you before. So, allow me to refresh your memory. Lay off the dirty tricks. Oh, and if you dare lay your hands on my friend again, you can expect a far less pleasant landing next time.
Ahem. Chiori?
Officer, an assault's in progress! Please, officer, you've got to do something!
Of course. I'll do my utmost to investigate the situation. Unfortunately, I was chatting with this traveler and seemed to have missed what happened. Not to worry, though. If you'd allow me to search the scene, I'm sure I'll be able to collect some useful evidence. You don't mind, do you? There's nothing in there that would implicate you in any illegal activity, I would hope.
Forget it. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Ms. Chiori, I must also ask you to refrain from engaging in such disorderly conduct in the future, especially out in the open like this.
Apologies, officer. I guess you could say I'm just used to tossing out any trash I come across on the street.
You...
Is there anything else either of you have to say for yourselves?
That's all from me. I sincerely hope that today's events will never happen again.
We'll see about that.
Whoa, that scared the heck out of Paimon! How did he just go flying out like that?
Such a graceful arc.
You're too kind.
Now's not the time to be accepting compliments. What happened to not doing anything too out of line?
Oh, not if I could help it, is what I said. And I think I kept to that. I started with a verbal warning, but he displayed neither shame nor remorse. If anything, he kept running his mouth with insults and threats.
Insults and threats so bad that he deserved to be tossed out like a sack of trash?
Believe it or not, they were that bad. He deserved to get knocked down a peg. It's the only way to get him to stop.
You could have reported him to the guards.
Oh, I will. But it'll take some time for them to gather evidence. And he denied that he ever had anything to do with those bandits. I don't want anything else to happen during Fontaine Fashion Week. On top of that, if Kirara is going to continue delivering goods for me, the least I can do is guarantee her safety. Oh, that reminds me. There is another favor I'd like to ask of you today.
What a shame. I believe you've already used up your favor quota for the day.
Have I? Well, it's a good thing I was planning on taking an advance on tomorrow's quota then.
Don't you think you're maxed out on advances already?
I always pay you back in information, don't I? It's just like you said. You scratch my back, and I scratch yours.
Alright.
Exactly, but none of them believed me.
Shit.
We're back.
You were gone for an awfully long time. Oh, please tell me nothing bad happened.
There's nothing to worry about. All you need to know is that you'll never have to worry about someone in Fontaine messing with your deliveries again.
Sorry, Chiori. I didn't mean to cause you so much trouble.
What are you talking about? You didn't do anything wrong. Those greedy bandits are to blame, along with a certain someone who doesn't know when to lay off the petty tricks. The next time you need to leave the city, call the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol. They'll escort you half of the way, and the Spina di Rusula can take the second half. With that sort of escort, the next time you make a delivery, those treasure hoarders won't go anywhere near your goods. Unless, of course, it's to offer to carry them for you.
Good one, Chiori.
I'm being serious. You know me. If I bring something up, you can assume it's already a done deal. You're going back to Inazuma tomorrow, right?
Wait, you don't mean...
I've already spoken to the captain of the Special Patrol. As discussed, the patrol's going to take a small detour during their daily training tomorrow. As for Navia, I'll give her a heads up in a bit.
There's really no need. I'm just a simple courier. I don't need to be surrounded by a bunch of armed guards. Or ones with sunglasses, for that matter. Don't you think this is a bit much?
Well, you certainly shouldn't count on such a procession for every trip you make to Fontaine. It's just a one-off thing. For my own peace of mind. It'll also show those guys what'll happen to those who dare to mess with my friends.
Since she's already talked to the patrol...
Well, if you think it's a good idea, Traveler, then... I guess it's fine.
Well, with the bad guys out of the way and your goods safely delivered, everything should be good to go for Fontaine Fashion Week, right?
I believe so. I'll try to churn out a few more outfits over the next few days. I've heard a lot of suppliers will be participating this year.
Paimon's gonna take a guess and say suppliers are super important.
But of course, they supply us designers with funding, equipment, factory access. You have to work with them if you want to become a truly renowned fashion house. That's also why this year's Fashion Week is so important to me.
But isn't your brand already really famous, Chiori? Your clothes are so pretty and so nice to wear. I can't help but brag about them to my customers whenever I get the chance.
Even so, I would imagine there are still people who've never heard of the Chiori brand, yes?
Well, I mean, with the amount of places that I deliver to, it's only natural that some people from other nations haven't heard of it.
Then it's still not famous enough. My goal is to make the Chiori brand renowned throughout all of Teyvat.
All of it? Your business would have to get pretty huge then.
Wait, would that mean I could just go to any Chiori branch on the continent to get my clothes fixed? It has been pretty inconvenient having to come to Fontaine every time I need to get them patched up.
Alternatively, of course, you could just be a bit more careful with them. They're already about as durable as I can make them.
Okay, I'll admit, they do get snagged on branches pretty often, but I can't help it. It's hard to be careful about that sort of thing when you're trying to take a nice nap in a tree.
Well, if that's your dream, Chiori, then we should do our best to make it a reality. Is there anything we can do to help out with Fashion Week?
I'm sure I could think of something.
Ooh, what is it? What is it?
Why don't you come to my shop tomorrow and model for me? Simply put, you'll serve as my living mannequins.
Oh, so we get to try on some of your clothes? Got it!
Seeing them off the rack will also give me the chance to make some small adjustments to the stitching and the silhouette of the designs.
Sounds easy enough.
Do you need us for the runway too?
No need. We've already booked the models for that. If you like them, though, feel free to visit the boutique and see if anything catches your eye. I'll even give you a special discount.
Ooh, sounds great! Paimon was just starting to get curious about all this design stuff.
Then we have a deal. You'll model some formal wear, Traveler, and I don't know. Paimon here will show off some kids' designs. I'll see you both tomorrow then.
Yep, sounds good. Wait, kids' clothes? Paimon told you already she's not a little kid.
Coming up, my husband promised to get you a replica of the most eye-catching outfit from the show.
Is that, yep, that is today's fill of encounter points.
I hear the voice of fate, speaking my name in humble... Ad Astra. Thank you for completing today.
Furina is at level 10. Wait, does that mean... Hold on a sec. Yeah, that means my whole team is at level 10 now. I think. Notice? Hmm. Okay, let me see. Let's see if they're all at level 10 yet. He's at 10, 10, 10. Oh! Baiju is at 9, just a little short. Okay. Well, I guess we'll finish getting Baiju up to 10. Okay.
There'll be an extra fee for that.
Ad Astra.
go ahead and switch over to Chaos Head now. Okay, I'll be... Okay. Let's see. Alright. So we finished the Senna route yesterday. And then I unlocked the Ua route. I don't think we're officially on the Ua route yet, though, because we haven't reached the branch from the main story. So we've gone through a couple of the Ua only scenes, but I think we've got a ways before we reach the big branch. So yeah, we still got some skipping to do. Mm.
ねえ、ナイトハルト。
Okay. Chapter 3 did not have any Yua scenes in it. Any extra Yua scenes. Go green since we're on the Yua route. Well, yeah, the thing about Yua is she's not very relevant in like the middle section of this story. Like she kind of almost disappears. Like she only shows up in little spots, like just now when she was when it was showing her during the big earthquake. But yeah.
お前だな。
よし、繋がった。
Oh yeah, we always gotta fucking get past this part. Alright. Okay. So yeah, we're in chapter 7 now, so I would think The branch should be happening here pretty soon. Dang. So we went all the way from like chapter 2 to chapter 7 without any extra Yua scenes.
Alright. よかったらどうぞ。
Chapter 8. Bon arrived at Frisia 30 minutes after the time Momose requested he be there.
ちょっとワンちゃん、遅いじゃないの。
Momose yelled as soon as he arrived. Bon shrugged and gave her a half-hearted smile as he walked over to her desk. He hadn't brought her any sweets today, a decision which he was beginning to regret.
あら、つばちゃんは？
今日は別行動。
若い子をこき使って、バンちゃんは楽してるわけね。
いやいや、俺もちゃんとやってるよ。昨日だって徹夜でいろいろ調べてたんだぜ。おかげで最近の女子高生の生態についてはかなり詳しくなった。
あんたね、呆れて物も言えないわ。
で、こうして俺を呼びつけたってことは、あの子と連絡取れたってこと？
今来てるわ。
さすがももちゃん。ちなみに可愛い子かい？
Momose gave the grinning Bon a slap on the head. She put her wrist into it too, and it hurt pretty bad.
いつまでもバカなこと言ってんじゃないわよ、エロ親父。
冗談だって。
Bon had asked Momose for a favor. He'd wanted to talk to somebody involved in the new gen cases directly, and had asked Frisia to make it happen. His questions were, for the moment, not going to be directly linked to the police investigation. He couldn't talk to her in an official capacity, at least not without somehow getting the rest of the team involved. Momose headed for a corner of the office, motioning for Bon to follow her. There was a small space there surrounded by shelves lined with files. This space served as a meeting room for talking with clients. There were 2 sofas, each with room for 2 people, and both far too big for the cramped little area. When Bon followed Momose inside, he saw a girl sitting there. She was wearing a Suime Academy uniform. Her shoulders were slumped and she was looking down. She looked exhausted.
ごめんね。お待たせしちゃって。
The girl looked up in surprise when Momose spoke. Her glasses fell forward a little, and she adjusted them with her fingers.
いえ、平気です。
She looked a little scared as she bowed shallowly to Bon. He was kind of hurt by this. Bon always tried his hardest to try and come off as unthreatening. He realized, though, that he still must be giving off the intimidating air of a professional police officer, though. It's something he would have to keep working on, he realized.
楠木優愛さんだね。
はい。
亡くなったミヤさんの双子の姉。それで間違いないかな。
Yua flinched a little before nodding. The first new gen case was the group dive. One of the victims who jumped was a girl named Miya Kusunoki.
まあ、そんな緊張しなさんな。君を取り調べようなんて思っちゃねえんだ。雑談程度に思ってよ。本題に入る前に、ちょっと聞いていいかい？ゆあちゃんは妹さんが亡くなったことについてどう思う？
ちょっとバンちゃん。
あ、悪いね。職業病ってやつか。気を使うような言い方できなくってな。ただ、気になってたんだ。捜査本部でも話題になってたんだが、楠木美也さんの遺族は奇妙だって。
ばあちゃん！
いえ、いいんです。
Momose had almost leapt out her chair at Bond's rude question, but Yua herself stopped her.
私もおかしいって思いますから。
はあ。
集団ライブで飛び降りた5人には自殺する理由なんてなかった。家族や友人はみんなそう主張している。だがミヤさんの家族だけは違った。
Bond took his fan out of his belt and began to wave it at his face.
何も主張しなかった。あっさり受け入れたって聞いてる。あまりに何も言わなさすぎて奇妙だったってな。なんでだい？
お父さんもお母さんもミヤちゃんが死んでからおかしくなっちゃったんです。
There was pain in her voice.
最初はミヤちゃんの事件の知らせを受けた日はそれでも泣いていたんです。お父さんもお母さんもとても辛そうでした。でも次の日の朝、なぜか二人は楽しそうに笑っていたんです。ミヤちゃんが死ぬ前と全く同じに戻ってたんです。たった一日で。私、わけがわからなくて、二人はミヤちゃんのこと忘れようとしてるんじゃないかって思って。そうしたらお父さんが笑いながら「お前に妹なんていないよ」って。ミヤちゃんが残した洋服とか靴とかを見せても全然取り合ってくれないんです。それはお前のために予備で買ってあったものだって。そうやってお父さんたちはニュースからも警察の話からも目を背けて記憶からミヤちゃんのことを消し去ろうとしてるんです。
つまり双子じゃなかったことに？
それで警察にもうちは一人っ子だって言って追い返してたわけか。
私とミヤちゃんは一卵性で見た目は瓜二つなんですけど、あの子は妹は親から嫌われていました。あの子はいつも自分の気持ちを押し殺して私のことを一番に考えてくれていたんです。
As Yua talked, she remembered the memories of her old life. For example, one year when she was in elementary school, her parents had bought a present, a single giant stuffed bear. Yua was excited, but Mia said she didn't like stuffed animals and ignored it. Her parents had disliked how Mia refused to act like a little child should. Still, Yua had quietly offered to share the stuffed animal with her, but Mia had refused. "I don't need a stuffed animal. You can have it," was all she'd said. A month or so later, though, when Yua had gotten tired of the stuffed animal, she'd woken late at night to see something surprising. Mia was holding the stuffed bear and talking to it, with such a happy look on her face. Yua had never seen her sister look so happy. It was only then that Yua realized her sister was lying about not wanting the bear. She'd been lying so that her sister could have it all to herself. The next day, Yua looked under Mia's pillow and found a cute picture of a bear she'd drawn. Mia had been sleeping with it in her arms after Yua got tired of the stuffed animal. Things like that had happened over and over again for the last 18 years. It was always Yua who blew out the candles on the birthday cake. Mia would say, "That's stupid, I'm not doing it," and her parents would get angry. Yua had made it into Suimei Academy, a private school, but Mia had deliberately behaved badly in class, lowering her grades and making sure she got sent to a public one. Her parents hadn't had the money to send both of them to private schools. No matter what Yua tried to do for Mia, Mia would always put her big sister first, even if it meant making other people hate her.
私は結局ミヤちゃんの優しさに甘えて今まで自分だけいい思いをしてきました。ミヤちゃんがいなくなって初めてもっとあの子のために何かできることがあったはずだってすごく後悔して、私が代わりに知ってあげればよかった。しかも挙句に親に存在そのものを忘れられてしまうなんて、こんなのあんまりです。あんまりにも悲しいです。
That was all the talking she could do. She took off her glasses and put her hands over her eyes as she began to cry. Momose sat next to her, kindly patting her on the back.
それでゆあちゃんは一人で事件のことを調べていたらしいの。ミヤちゃんに一体何があったのか知るためにね。
そりゃあ大変だったろ。
そして一人の人物を突き止めた。
あ？
Momose looked over to Bon, still holding Yua close.
西条匠くんよ。
なるほどね。
Bon stroked the stubble on his chin and leaned forward.
いつだったか西条と追跡劇をしてたっていう女子高生の話を所轄のデカから聞いたんだが、もしかしてユアちゃんだったりする？
She nodded, looking like she was sorry.
ああ、興味あるな。詳しく聞かせてもら。 おうと思ったけどちょっとごめんよ。
Bon chuckled and bobbed his head at Yua and Momose. He'd been cut off by the sound of his phone, coming from within his suit pocket. He quickly took it out and looked at the LCD screen. It was showing Sua's name.
もしもし、どうした？
先輩、7番目っす。
なんだと？
Sua's voice was tense. Bon could hear the sound of other police officers frantically running around him. From the sound of it, Sua was at the station.
ニュージェネ第7の事件が起きたんすよ。
Bon's eyes went wide, and then he bit his lip bitterly. Momose and Yua could tell from his demeanor that something had happened, and were looking at him, worried.
ガイシャは3人、友人同士らしいっす。3人とも胴体から体が切断されてて、それぞれの上半身と下半身を別々に入れ替えてテグス、釣りとっすね。それで縫い付けられてたっす。それと額にそれぞれ Q、D、N って読める傷が。
何かのメッセージか？
さあ、そこまでは。それと気になることが。司法解剖の結果分かったんすけど、ガイシャの胴体の切断部はノコギリとか包丁とかそういう刃物で切断されたものじゃないって。
どういう意味だ？
なんか強い力で引きちぎられたそうっす。
引きちぎられた。
Bon repeated to himself as he scratched his head violently with the hilt of the fan.
まるで怪獣だな。あるいは最近流行りの魔法使いとかな。
先輩、それマジで言ってんすか？映画オタクの自分でもさすがにその意見には同意しかねるっす。
単なる例えだ、バカな。映画らさっさと捜査に戻れ。
He hung up the phone. By the time Yua finished her conversation with Momose and Bon left Frisia, the sky was dark. She told them everything she suspected about Takumi Nishijo, and showed them all the research she'd done. A police detective and the head of a private investigation company. If the two of them could be persuaded, the police might go to arrest Takumi Nishijo. Or at least, she'd hoped so. Takumi Nishijo needed to be arrested. She knew how much he was suffering, so she wanted him to turn himself in. But since he wasn't willing to, she'd have to get the police to arrest him. That had been what she'd thought anyway. But surprisingly, Bon had told her that Takumi Nishijo wasn't a suspect anymore. It was unbelievable, something she didn't want to accept. Why would they refuse to believe her theory? It was so clear that Takumi Nishijo was behind the murders. Yua bit her lip and headed toward the station at a fast pace. She needed to get home and do more research. She needed to find proof they couldn't ignore. Then she'd show it to Bon and prove she was right.
あれ？楠木さんところのお嬢さんじゃないっすか。
Someone called her name out of nowhere. She jerked a little and then stopped moving. Shibuya's not safe these days. Girls, make sure you're not out alone at night. She remembered the teacher telling her that during homeroom, and froze stiff. The man who'd called out to her was young and friendly looking.
確かユアちゃんっすよね。
She recognized him from somewhere, but she couldn't remember where.
覚えてないっすか？自分、諏訪守って言います。ほら、こういうものっすよ。
He pulled out a police badge from his pocket, just high enough for her and nobody else to see. Then he quickly put it away.
集団ダイブの後、一度楠木さんのお宅に伺ったことありますよ。その時にユアちゃんともいろいろお話ししたんすけどね。
すいません。思い出しました。その説はどうも。
Yua bowed to him. She'd been a mess after the incident. She didn't remember his face at all. But she did remember a detective who was nice enough to listen to everything she had to say. That was the conversation where she'd realized how bizarre her sister's death was. In that respect, she was grateful to him.
さっきまでバン刑事と一緒だったんじゃないっすか？
バンさんとお知り合いなんですか？
そりゃ同じ警視庁捜査一課っすから。自分の先輩っすよ。いつも怒られてます。よっぽど若い女の子と話せるのが嬉しかったんすね。ここだけの話っすけど、今日ユアちゃんと会うって自分に教えてくれた時の先輩、鼻の下伸ばしちゃってどう見てもスケベ親父って感じだったっす。できれば自分も同席したかったんすけど、捜査から抜け出せなくて。そうそう、ユアちゃんのご両親には連絡行ってるんすかね？多分行ってると思うんすけど。どうかな？
連絡と言いますと？
いや、集団ダイブのね、犯人が使ったと思われる遺留品が見つかったんすよ。
本当ですか
Yua hadn't heard anything about this. She found herself edging closer to him.
どんなものだと思うっすか？最近別の事件でマスコミが散々取り上げてるんで有名だと思うんすけど、なんとダーススパイダーのヘルメットっす。
それを集団ダイブの犯人もかぶっていたんですか？
そう、ネットに事件の様子を撮影したビデオが流出したっすよね。あれを解析した結果分かったんすよ。それにしてもダーススパイダーといえば例の渋谷エスパー騒動の少年が有名っすよね。西条匠くんでしたっけ？なんで彼が集団ダイブの犯人と同じようにダーススパイダーのヘルメットを持ってたんすかね。
When she heard those words, black emotions welled up inside her. It was something like certainty now. Just a bit ago, Bon and Momose had been telling her that her theory was wrong. The fact that they'd rejected it only made her more certain now that this was the final piece of the puzzle.
さてと、それじゃ自分フリージアに行くんでこの辺で失礼します。
After he was finished talking, Suwa waved and walked off. Yua was left alone. She stood there, unmoving, head slumped forward.
彼だわ。
She whispered softly to no one in particular.
彼なの。やっぱり彼だった。彼しかいない。彼に間違いない。彼が妹を殺したのよ。彼がミワを殺したのよ。
I will be back shortly. Alright, I'm back. Okay, I guess, not sure, it's not letting me skip this, so I think we'll read this out. Nightheart, hey! Grim, heya, Nightheart. I've been waiting. We got new nice guy. Nightheart, we've got what? Too lazy to find AA. Grim, new gen, dude, new gen. Didn't we find out that Grim is Sua? I think. Anyway, Nightheart, new gen equals nice guy. Grim, new gen, NG, nice guy. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out, right? Anyway, it's here, the seventh murder. The seventh murder? Another one. Another new gen murder. How long was this going to keep happening? Would the next one be the one where they finally got me? Or the one after that? Anyway, had Grim gotten a job at the new gen advertising division or something? He was constantly telling me about them whenever one happened. Once again, he'd posted a bunch of links to news sites too. This must have been his way of telling me to look at them. I clicked the link and bit down hard on my lip. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna read out this whole thing here.
今日午前4時50分頃、東京都渋谷区の線路沿いで男性3人の他殺死体が鉄柱に吊り下げられているのを通りかかった新聞販売員の男性が発見しました。警察の調べによりますと、殺されたのはいずれも渋谷区に住む無職藤田康平さん、大学生の安沢三郎さん、とび職の高木亮さんの3人です。3人とも胴体の部分が切断され、それぞれの上半身と下半身が別々に入れ替えられて糸で縫合されていました。3人の額にはそれぞれ謎の傷がつけられており、警察では犯人からのメッセージではないかとみて調べています。渋谷では2ヶ月ほど前から猟奇殺人事件が頻発しており、警察では今回の事件も同一犯による犯行の可能性が高いとみて捜査を続けています。
The last video I saw showed the faces of the 3 murdered men. I recognized their faces.
あいつらだ。昨日僕に絡んできた。
I gave them my wallet, but they still attacked me anyway. I passed out, and when I woke up, Kazupi was there. 3 of them were covered in blood. I took my wallet out of my pocket and stared at it. When I'd woken up, Kazupi was holding my wallet, and she'd given it back to me. Could she be the one who... No, that wasn't right. When I'd seen them last, their faces were smashed up, and they were covered in blood, but they certainly weren't sliced in half. They'd been killed after Kazupi and I had left. Was it Shogun? Was he taunting me? Telling me that I was next? There was a chance that Shogun would come back. He seemed to be coming after me as some sort of game, which meant the next quest might start whenever he felt like it. That scared me. Remy, help me. Where'd she gone? Wasn't she supposed to protect me? Somebody was here. I looked at the clock on the computer. It was just after 8 in the evening. Who could be coming at this hour? Remy. It had to be Remy. She'd finally come to save me. She'd said she'd stay with me. Of course she'd come. She'd certainly taken her time, though. I hurried to the door, feeling that salvation was at hand. I undid the padlock locking the door from the inside, and then I flung open the door. I tried to say Remy's name, but suddenly somebody put a hand over my mouth. In an instant, I started to panic. I didn't even get to see who it was. I tried to knock the hand away, but before I could, they pressed their body weight against me, and I started to stagger backwards. I tried as hard as I could to stay standing. I flailed my hands about, trying to stay upright. I lowered my head and bit their hand as hard as I could. Whoever they weren't saying a word. They kept trying to press themselves up against me. I was biting pretty hard, but their hand wasn't budging. They pushed me back and tripped me, and I fell, unable to stay upright anymore. I hit the back of my head hard and almost passed out. My vision was swimming, and I couldn't even tell what position I was lying on the floor in. They still had their hand up against my mouth. It was hard to breathe. As my mind started to slip into the darkness, I used all the energy I had to look up at the face of the person in front of me. Yua? That's right. I'd forgotten about her. I'd been so focused on Shogun that I'd forgotten about her, his servant. Panic seized me. I struggled and tried as hard as I could to escape. But Yua's whole body weight was on top of me, and I couldn't get up. A girl was pressing herself up against me, but there was no time to get horny over it. I didn't have it in me to enjoy the feeling of her body. The only thing in my mind was an instinctive fear that if I didn't run, I'd be killed. There was a little trickle of blood falling from her hand where I'd bit her, but she was still pressing as hard as before. Her hands were incredibly strong. She was pressing my jaw as hard as she could, and even digging her nails into my cheek. I was hit by a stabbing pain. I could hear her whisper between ragged breaths, and I shivered. I grabbed a tuft of her long hair and yanked it, trying to fight back. She winced, but still didn't get off. With her open hand, she grabbed the hand I was using to pull her hair and dug her nails into it, too. It hurt so bad I let go. When I did, she pinned my hand to the floor. Her glasses had tilted slightly on her nose during our struggle. I could see tears in her eyes from when I pulled her hair. But her eyes were endlessly cold as she stared at me, just like at Chateau Park.
あなたが殺した。
What was she talking about? Was she still saying I was the new gen killer? I didn't kill anybody. She was the one who was here to kill me. Staring back into her cold gaze was terrifying. I learned in that moment that you shouldn't lock eyes with crazy people. There are some eyes that are just abnormal, insane. I looked away, praying to wake up from this nightmare, but
目をそらさないで。
her face got closer. I could feel her unsteady breathing on my cheeks.
私を見て。
Her breath was so hot. She was so close that even if I looked away, she'd still be in my field of vision. I thought about giving her a headbutt, but I was pinned too tightly to try.
教えてあげる。あなたが知らないあなたを教えてあげる。あなたの中にはもう一人のあなたがいるの。
DID, Dissociative Identity Disorder, Multiple Personalities. That's what she'd said at Cafe when we'd fought like this. But that was just her delusion. How could Yua know more about me than I knew myself?
西条くん、まだ知らないの？自覚できていないの？何も知りませんでしたって許されると思ってるの？今まで何度も忠告してきたのに、どうして聞いてくれないの？あなたの中にはもう一人の人格、将軍がいる。その人格は許されないことをしているの。これ以上放置はできない。これ以上人殺しはさせない。あなたは早く病院へ行って治療すべきよ。それが嫌だと言うなら、私はあなたを警察に突き出す。将軍を放置することは西条くんの罪よ。あなたも人殺しに加担しているんだって理解して。
I can't understand that.
理解できるよね。
I haven't killed anybody.
理解してもらわなきゃ困る。
I don't have multiple personalities.
理解すべきよ。
Multiple personalities only exist in manga and novels. I refuse to accept it.
出てきて。私はあなたと話がしたいの。聞こえているんでしょ？将軍。
Shogun's not me. It's a real person. A different person. He uses a wheelchair and shows up at weird times. And he's always reading my mind. And he's got a voice like a little kid and wrinkled skin like an old man. He's my enemy. He's not me. Just the thought makes me sick. And wait, didn't Yua work for Shogun? I thought she did. But it looked like she really thought I was Shogun.
西条くん、自重して。あなたは少し眠っていて。将軍にその体を渡して。
I can't do that. I don't have multiple personalities. I tried to tell her that, but with her hand over my mouth, all that came out were muffled moans.
出てきなさい。出てきて。出てきて。出られないの？出てこられるはずよ。出たいでしょ。出てこい、人殺し。
I started to cry. My body went limp. I didn't have the strength to resist. I was just tired. Why? Why does all this stuff have to happen to me? Why does she have to say all this crap to me? What did I ever do to you? This wasn't fair. This crazy, delusional woman was stalking me, and there was nobody here to save me. Was she going to kill me here? Even if I did make it through today, there was no guarantee I'd survive tomorrow. Shogun could appear at any moment. Was I going to have to spend the rest of my life living in fear and jumping at shadows? Please, no. I don't want to keep living this life. Maybe I'd be better off going crazy. Maybe I'd be better off dead.
どうして泣くの?
She slowly took her hand off my mouth. She lifted her body off my chest. With the weight gone, I felt a lot better.
将軍が出てきたの?
I shook my head limply.
うっざりなんだ。いっそ殺せ。
殺さない。私が殺させない。あなたは罪を償うべきなのよ。そして真実を語るべき。死んで逃げることは許さない。許さないわ。許すわけにはいかないの。
将軍は別にいる。ニュージェネの犯人はそいつだよ。
将軍はあなたよ。あなたなの。あなたしか考えられない。
Nothing I said was getting through to her. She was only interested in her own ideas. She was convinced they were completely right. There was no sense in resisting.
将軍、出てきて。出てきてよ。出てきてって言ってるでしょ。どうして出てこないの？あなたがそこにいるのは分かってるのよ。絶対に将軍を引き出してみせるわ。私は諦めないから。それまで絶対に逃がさないから。
Suddenly, she stood up and closed the container's open door. She leaned over and picked up the padlock and locked it. Then she put the key in her uniform pocket. What was she doing? What was this girl thinking?
逃がさないから。
She whispered coldly, as if she was talking to herself, not me. There were a lot of fast food spots in Shibuya, but all of them were filled with young people. It took a lot of courage for a middle-aged man to come there alone. You felt out of place, like you didn't belong. Yasuji Ban thought these things to himself as he sat there drinking his coffee. Surrounding him were groups of teenagers talking happily. The coffee in the paper cup was already cold. There was a clear plastic file on his table. Inside was the vast number of memos he'd taken, and a few copies he'd made of the official investigation reports. Of the latter, there weren't very much. He'd been here for an hour alone, going over his notes again. As for why he was doing it in such a public place, just the other day, he'd been taken off the New Gen task force, but he was still investigating it on his own. The copies he'd made, which of course were certainly not to be removed from the police building, had several images attached to them. The images showed one of the victims of the group dive, the first new-gen case. Mia Kusunoki. Bon had taken an interest in her after speaking with her older sister, Yua, yesterday. After what she'd said about Mia, he decided to look into her himself. Originally, he was focused on the rumors about the strange girl with the sword that were going around Shibuya, and this was only a secondary concern. But after going through all the documents, something felt strange. There were little things which, when viewed in isolation, were easy to miss. Maybe they didn't matter. Maybe they had nothing to do with the case. But when viewed as part of the whole, they just felt wrong. The feeling was especially strong after hearing what Yua had said yesterday. He looked at the document in front of him. It read, "After the dive, glasses were found among Mia Kusunoki's possessions." That was what bothered him. He thought through all the things the task force had found during its investigations. He took a sip of his coffee and sighed. Not a single picture of Mia Kusunoki taken before she died showed her wearing glasses. It was always Yua, her older sister, who wore glasses. He had the results of Mia's physicals, too. They all showed her with vision of 1.5 in both eyes. There was no reason at all for her to wear glasses. Unlike her social butterfly of a sister, Mia Kusunoki was a quiet girl who liked anime. That matched with what Yua Kusunoki had said about her. The kids who died in the group dive were all friends, but according to the information he had, they hadn't met in real life until the day they died. They were all internet friends who decided to meet up in real life. Of course, their online conversations had all been tracked down and analyzed. There was nothing in them to indicate that they were going to commit suicide. And several hours before the incident, 2 teenage girls, likely twins, had been seen entering a fast food place in Shibuya. Bon looked around. The fast food restaurant where they'd been seen was this one. He talked to the witness, an employee here, just a little while ago. They'd talked for a while before they'd gone into the bathroom together. They hadn't come out for 10 minutes or so. What had they been doing in the bathroom? He stared at the girls' bathroom for a few moments before realizing that he probably looked like a weird old pervert to the kids around him. He chuckled and went back to looking out the window. "18 hours had passed since Yua had broken into my room. I was tied up to one of my bunk bed's poles with my hands behind my back. Fortunately, I'd been tied up sitting down, so it wasn't that tiring, but the cords were digging into my wrists. I'd been more or less out of it for about 3 of the 18 hours, but since I hadn't been able to get any real sleep, I was having trouble keeping my eyes open. Damn it. I'm not into bondage, okay? Find somebody else to tie up. Yua was sitting on the sofa staring at me. She'd been there all night. All she did was sit there and glare at me. Didn't she get tired? What was the point of all this anyway? Yua was convinced I had DID, but I didn't. No matter how long she waited, Shogun wasn't going to show up. After she'd tied me up, she'd given me a chance to talk. I used it to try and convince her. I'd spent hours on it, but she wasn't listening. She was so stubborn that after a few hours, I finally gave up. And then,
あなたが将軍を生み出したんです。あなたが将軍なんです。現実逃避の手段。将軍はあなた自身であり、同時にあなたではない別の存在。もう一人のあなた。あなたの負の側面。あなたの弱い心を守るための存在。あなたの狂気。快楽殺人者。手段は選ばない。殺す相手も選ばない。殺すことが存在理由。誰でもよかったんですか？本当にミーアはなぜ選ばれたんですか？答えて。答えてよ。答えてください。答えてほしい。答えないと許しません。
she kept whispering the same things over and over. She sounded crazy. This was a small room, and I couldn't put my hands over my ears either. I was forced to listen. I thought I would go crazy myself. I tried to come up with a way to run. I tried telling her I needed to go to the bathroom and seeing if I could escape that way. But it didn't work. She untied me and let me go to the bathroom, but she didn't give me a moment's privacy. Even when I was using the toilet, she was watching me from right behind. And she was still whispering, too. How long was she going to keep this up? It was possible that she might decide to change her mind and just kill me at any minute. It wasn't safe for me to go to sleep. Of course, even awake, I didn't think I could protect myself.
何がきっかけ？どうすれば出てくるんですか？肉体的苦痛？精神的苦痛？性的衝動？トラウマ？偶然？
And then she suddenly fell silent. She was still staring at me, though. The room was dead silent. The silence just made me more nervous. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a rumbling belly. I was hungry too, since I hadn't had anything to eat or drink. But it wasn't me. So Yua was hungry then. Of course, even though she must have known I'd heard her stomach rumble, her expression didn't change a bit. A normal girl, Sarah for instance, would have reacted in a cute way, like this for instance.
何さ、しょうがないっしょ。食べたいけど、すごく我慢してるんだから。なんでって、それは前にあなたに太ってるって言われたから。でも別にさ、あなたに言われたからダイエットしてるわけじゃないよ。勘違いしないでよね、このボケナス。
You know, like a really obvious tsundere. You're so cute when you're blushing, Sarah. Crap. Of course I'd want to escape into delusions with all that was going on.
食べないんですか？
Yua opened her mouth. Her voice was as cold as ever. Her gaze was directed at my feet. There was a plate there. The plate had pasta on it. Polak egg spaghetti. She'd even put some seaweed flakes on top of it. It had been there for 2 hours already, though, and the noodles were probably a squishy mess now. Yua had made it. She'd left the room, leaving me tied up without saying a word, and come back 30 minutes later with this pasta. She must have gone out of the building into the supermarket, bought the ingredients, and cooked it outside my room. I couldn't understand why she made it herself. She could have just as easily bought pre-made something at the convenience store. There might be poison in it, I thought. That's why I hadn't touched it. That, and since I was tied up, I couldn't reach it anyway.
あんたが食べればいい。
It was Yua's stomach that had rumbled. I tried to make my voice sound as sarcastic as possible.
あなたを肉体的にいたぶろうとか、そんなつもりはないんです。私はただ、将軍が出てくるのを待っているだけ。だから、食べてください。食べてくれなきゃ困ります。食べて。
この状態で、食べられると思ってるの？無茶言わないでよ。
Yua stood up and walked over to me, then crouched down right next to me. I looked away in fear, but part of me was hoping she'd decided to untie the ropes. She hadn't, though. Yua brought the plate towards me, and somehow managed to get the pasta, which had now lost all its moisture, wrapped around a fork. She brought the fork to my mouth.
どうぞ。
嫌だ。食べないぞ。
Normally, having a girl feed you was an experience you could only find in an H game. But being fed by Yua right now was only making me want to kill somebody. If you want to feed me, untie me first, damn it. Then I could pretend to eat it, and then say it's nasty and I don't want any more. Then she'd feel real bad, I bet.
レンジでチンしましょうか？
いらないって言ってるじゃないか。
I thought about using my knee to knock the plate out of her hands, but if I pissed her off, there's no telling what she might do to me. The idea scared the crap out of me, and I gave up on it.
分かってください。私が西条くんにこんなことするのは、あなたを救うためでもあるんです。決してあなたを傷つけるためじゃないんですよ。
What? Was Yua just dumb? Was she literally stupid? Who the hell did she think she was anyway? Save me? Sure, I'd been afraid of the new gen murders and Shogun. I'd wanted somebody to save me. But that list of somebodies did not include Yua. I wasn't interested in playing along with the delusions of a crazy chick.
食べて。無理にでも食べて。
She put the fork with the cold pasta wrapped around it up to my mouth.
食べられますよね。
She drew her face closer to mine. She was staring into my eyes.
食べてください。食べて。
And then she froze. Why did this girl always get so close to me whenever she was mad about something? I pressed my lips into a thin line and looked away. Even the idea of eating anything this woman prepared for me was disgusting. An hour or so had passed. My stomach was hurting bad. I wanted to scream in terror, but I couldn't.
食べて。食べてよ。食べてって言ってるでしょ。
食べて。
She was still right in front of my face, staring at me. She still had the fork with the pasta up against my lips. She'd been like that the whole time.
食べて。
Alright, I'm gonna go grab some more water, so I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back.
食べてください。食べないと。食べて。食べてほしい。食べて。食べなさい。食べて。食べていいの。食べなよ。食べろ。
She kept whispering over and over in a low voice. It felt like she'd been doing it for at least an hour. The whole thing was so eerie that I couldn't move a finger. This must have been how a frog feels when a snake is bearing down on it. She hadn't hurt me. She wasn't trying to force the pasta into my lips. But the terror I felt towards her was just growing more and more intense. All she was doing was waiting for me to eat. The reason it felt so creepy was that a normal person would have given up after 5 minutes. She'd been waiting over an hour. If she just screamed, "Eat the food already," and grabbed me by the hair and forced it into my mouth, at least that would have been normal. I couldn't tell what Yua was thinking. There was something very, very wrong with her. She was broken. She didn't even seem human. I was scared. I was completely terrified. I wanted to just get on my knees and beg her to let me go. An awful sweat was forming over my whole body. The mental pressure was making it hard to even breathe. I'd never had a girl stare at me for this long, from this distance. Had anybody? I mean, if she was my girlfriend and we were having a nice romantic chat, that would be one thing. But all she was doing was staring at me with a blank expression and cold eyes, and mumbling "eat" over and over. This wasn't something that normally happened to people.
食べて。食べなさい。食べてよ。食べてください。食べろ。
I couldn't take her gaze anymore. I forced the words out of my mouth. They came out raspy and dry.
食べるよ。
Yua stopped whispering. She didn't move. She was still in the exact same position. I forced my mouth open. Trembling, I ate the pasta I'd refused for over an hour. It was dry, and eating it stole what little moisture remained in my already dry mouth. I swallowed it without even really chewing it. I didn't have it in me to try and figure out how it tasted. After she saw me do it, Yua blinked several times. She'd been frozen like a statue, and now she finally started to move.
おいしい?
Of course not. I couldn't tell her that, though. I just nodded softly.
よかったです。
She didn't look happy at all, though. The blank expression remained plastered on her face. She lowered the fork towards the plate. She grabbed another dry lump of pasta with the fork and raised it to my mouth again. Was I supposed to eat it all? Was she not going to let me go until I did? Ugh, please, let me go. I started to cry. I was so scared. But no matter how much I cried, it looked like she was going to stay like this until all the pasta was eaten. So I cried, but I ate. I kept letting her feed me the dry, disgusting pasta. And by the time I finished, I was mentally and physically exhausted.
お腹いっぱいになりましたか? なりましたよね。なったはず。一生懸命作った甲斐がありました。
She spoke coldly, but finally moved away from me. She put the plate on my computer desk and returned to the sofa. Then she sat down and looked at me. Once again, she stopped moving completely. Please, don't look at me. Stop looking at me. I kept whispering in my heart. I was too scared to speak. Was she going to keep looking at me for a full 24 hours? This was mental torture. The idea made me feel miserable.
なんでこんなことするんだよ。
I asked, sobbing. I had to ask.
僕に何の恨みがあって。
妹が死んだんです。
Huh? Sister? For just a moment, Yua looked like she was about to break into tears. But then, the cold mask returned to her face.
集団ダイブの被害者の一人、私の双子の妹、ミアって言います。私は妹を殺した犯人を許さないって思ってました。そしてあなたにたどり着いた。あなたの苦しみを知りました。私は妹がなぜ殺されなくちゃいけなかったのか、その真実を知りたい。なぜ犯人が、将軍が妹を殺したのか知りたい。それとあなたも助けたい。分かってください。分かってくれますよね。分かるはず。分かるはずです。
I remembered the group dive video uploaded to YouTube. So one of the victims screaming and crying in that video was her younger sister. After what had happened to Nanami, I could kind of understand how she felt. But that didn't mean I was sympathetic. She'd broken into my room and tied me to a post. Of course I couldn't sympathize with her. I'd completely lost track of how long I'd been in here. There were no windows in this room, so I couldn't even tell what time it was now.
その目誰の目ってどういう意味？どうしてこれから殺す相手に言わせたの？どうしてダイイングメッセージとして残したの？あなたは何を訴えたいの？
The only way to tell inside the base was to look at my computer clock or my cell phone. Tied to the bedpost, I couldn't do either. When I went to the bathroom, I was able to go outside, so I could get a general idea of what time it was then. But as this dragged on, I started to get reluctant to even go to the bathroom. Without any water, I didn't have any urge to pee. It felt like I hadn't needed to use the toilet for at least a full day now.
どうしてダーススパイダーなの？それを被ることで何を訴えたかったの？宗教的な意味があるの？ダークヒーロー願望。それともセランをバカにしたいだけ？
Yua barely moved. All she did was sit on the sofa. Occasionally she would stand up for a little or change how she sat, but nothing more. And the whole time she kept whispering. It amazed me that she could talk so much. She didn't call or text anyone, or use the computer to kill time. She didn't sleep. All she did was ask me questions. The words themselves were starting to lose their meaning. I hated being stared at. Shogun's mind reading, at least, only happened once in a while. I hated it, but it wasn't unbearable. But having Yua watch my every action with her expressionless, cold eyes, that felt like it was striking a fatal blow at the very core of who I was. As long as I was tied up here, unable to move, I couldn't see anything changing. I'd lost track of how long I'd been tied up. I had no idea how many days it had been. It felt like it might have only been 2 days, but it also might have been a month. Not being able to move was really stressful. For the past several hours, I thought of nothing but how I wanted to see a clock. I couldn't think of anything else.
それとも
Her head suddenly began to sway. She took off her glasses and rubbed her tired eyes. The effect of having no sleep at all was finally catching up with her. She was getting what she deserved for being so stupid. What she was doing was pointless, a waste of effort. If she just listened to what I was telling her, none of this would have happened.
いつ出てきてくれるんですか
Her whisper sounded so pained. Was she talking to Shogun?
どうしたら出てきてくれるんですか出てきてよ
He's not coming. Sorry. He was never here in the first place.
待ってるから待って
Her voice dropped off, and then her body began to tilt to the side. She slumped over onto the sofa and lay there, unmoving. Had she fallen asleep? Had she finally run out of steam? I sighed in relief as the tension left my body. I hadn't had a moment's relief while she was staring at me, but now I could finally get a little rest.
タッキー、何のんきなこと言ってんの
I heard Seraton's voice coming from next to the PC monitor.
逃げるなら今がチャンスなんよそれどころかさ、今なら無防備なユアッチを逆監禁できるかもそしたら、やりたい放題じゃん、ボケナス
I see. I could, for example, rape her, or make her endure all kinds of sexy punishments, perhaps. Trembling, I looked over at her face. Asleep, she was actually pretty cute. I remembered the soft smile she'd shown me when we'd first met. Obviously, she had her reasons for thinking of me as her enemy. I thought she was working for Shogun, too. But she was the one who'd made me think that. She was the one who'd tricked me, lied to me. So even if I raped her or made her endure all kinds of sexy punishments, she wouldn't have the right to complain. I looked at her face again. Her eyelids were twitching. Her face was twisted in pain. Suddenly, a single tear fell from the corner of her eye. Maybe she was dreaming about her dead sister.
タッキー、調教師ないの
I couldn't, after seeing her cry.
監禁されて緊縛されてるのに タッキーって聖人君子だね。優しい、優しすぎる。そこはタッキーのいいところだけど、時と場合によるよ。
No, it's not like that. Of course, I still couldn't forgive what she'd done, but somehow my anger and my will to resist her were gone. Was it because I wasn't as nervous now that she wasn't staring at me? Or because I'd heard about what had happened to her sister? Somehow, it felt like she actually wasn't going to hurt me. I felt incredibly sleepy. I decided to forget the pain in my arms from being tied up and just give in to the sleepiness. I could figure out how to escape later. I woke up and felt something strange. Something was missing. That's how it felt. My eyes were still a little blurry as I looked around the room. When I tried to stand up, the cords dug into my wrists, sending pain shooting through my arms. I remembered that I was tied up. Yua was the one who tied me up. Yua wasn't here. That was what had felt so wrong. I was the only one here now. Where'd she gone? Did she go to make more food? Or to the bathroom? I had no idea how long Yua and I had been here, but neither she nor I had gone to school once during that time. The only times either of us left this room were either to cook or to use the bathroom. I wasn't even allowed to take a shower. I let out a deep sigh. Yua was probably going to come back any minute now, and she'd go right back to watching me. Did Yua just have a really persistent personality? Or was it her anger and rage at her sister's death that was driving her to act so bizarrely? How could I get her to understand that I wasn't Shogun? Maybe I could show her the message I'd received from him on my PC? But Yua was completely overtaken with her own delusions right now. A single email wouldn't change her mind. I needed something more definitive to prove that Shogun and I were separate people. If Shogun were to show up in my room, that'd do it. Of course, that'd be a problem on its own. I didn't want to see Shogun ever again. If he was here, that meant he'd come to kill me.
ねえねえ、タッキー、逃げた方がいいよ。
Ugh. We'll be right back. All right. I think I'm gonna stop here for tonight. Yeah. So, I will be back again tomorrow night, and we will do some more Genshin Impact. Either the story quest or the Lynette hangout event, and then we'll do some more Chaos Head. So, see y'all tomorrow. Have a good night.